and then it's not used, and then we realize one day that you are doing something else, which is similar to what we've already given to you, it makes us think that if you are just paying our salaries, as Prof said, you are giving us money to do nothing. But we want to be used.
I can assure you that when Dr. Bawumia is president, these issues will be dealt with as a matter of policy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we have your word for that. And Dr. Mafu, we are going to be on you to really make sure that these things, if if and only if, Dr. Bawumia becomes the next president.
When
he becomes the next president. Yeah, thank you. It is possible. Yes, everything is possible. So one other thing I really want to follow up is you talk about funding. And when DG was speaking, when our council chair was also talking, he talked so much about the National Research Fund. Honestly, your talk with the CSR, as DG said, the whole 2-page is dedicated for CSR restructuring. It's beautiful. But we are not really seeing the commitment that we can really hold you to this, in the sense that you don't even mention the National Research Fund in your manifesto. There is nowhere that the National Research Fund has been mentioned, not to talk of committing yourself to a value or say that we want to establish this fund by this seed capital. But I don't know what the fintech companies have done for all of you politicians. Because the NDC has the same thing. They were very emphatic on how much fintech fund they wanted to grow. And your manifesto also talk about $100 million seed grant to establish a fintech hub. But then you talk all the sweetness about our research, about CSIR, about re-strategizing and funding, and you mention nothing about how much you really want to commit to do this. Like, how can we be sure that this is possible? It's not just rhetoric.
It is possible. Thank you very much. I want to start off by saying that we use the strong language of investing in science and technology and innovation. And that investing should connote that this is a manifesto that is thinking about actually pumping resources into the sector. When we have developed the National Research STI Plus plan, the other things that we're going to do that will dovetail into what you're saying is that we will have a national research program that is developed not by politicians, but through a collaboration with the science community, so that we have a blueprint. From that national research program, public financing will then be initiated. So what we are going to do is to fund that program based on the priorities of the country. So, for example, already by law, we are supposed to give a seed money to the National Research Fund. That will be part of the investment we are talking about. We are already supposed to allocate 0.5% of national revenue to science, technology, and innovation as per the National Research Fund Act. That is part of the investment we are talking about. So yes, we didn't go into the specifics of we will do this A, B, C, D, but we have made a bold statement about investment. And if you are going to invest in something, certainly you are going to commit resources. But it is not going to be the usual MESTI, you give 700 million Ghana cedis to MESTI, you use 95% of that to pay salaries, then scientists are not having money to do anything, and then no. So apart from the normal money that you give to MESTI as a way of funding that ministry, you now then have to have a national research program. Which research program you are going to budget? Of course, when you have a program, you have to budget that. And now you ask yourself, how are we going to finance that program? So, yes, I have said that we will enforce the National Research Fund by paying the seed money, 50 million Ghana cedis. We are going to commit 0.5% of national revenue to science, technology, and innovation. You see, my dear, what is important about these things is about the integrity of the president and the competence of the people he surrounds himself with to prosecute a policy. as for the law, it is there. If you elect a president who does not have a clear vision and know what he's going to do with science, technology, and innovation, then I can sit here and tell you that we will do this and do that. It is not going to happen. So at the end of the day, that is why we policy scientists always say that policy is about the structured commitment of resources. And so once the MPP and Dr. Bawumia has said that when I become president, what I'm going to do is to have a science, technology, innovation plus program. And in my plan, we'll have to assemble the science community to define a program, a research program for the country. Not defined by politicians, but defined by the whole science stakeholders. So when we have agreed on that blueprint, then that is going to define how we structure our budgets. And so the 2025 budget, when he's president, will then have, in March, when there's going to be a real budget of the new government, these reflections will then have to come. So I can commit to you that, yes, we will enforce the National Research Fund Act, pay 0.5% of national revenues. If you look at 2024 values, then you are talking about maybe 137 million Ghana cedis as 0.5% of, equivalent of 0.5% of national revenue. That law will be enforced, and it will be enforced because Dr. Bawumia, as a president, believes that this program is something that he wants to. That's why he's clear in his manifesto and dedicated almost 2 pages of his manifesto trying to let the Ghanaian people know that, look, I cannot be talking about Ghana becoming part of the 4th industrial revolution without committing to science, technology, and innovation. And mind you, if you go to our manifesto, already we have given indication how we are going to do that. We are going to cut down 3% of GDP funding so that government can prioritize that 30 billion space to things that the president and the government thinks is important to drive the economy. And I can assure you that under Dr. Bawumia's presidency, science, technology, and innovation and enterprise development as a program will be part of the priority programs of his presidency.
Okay, thank you. But I still stand by this, and I said it last week that I don't know whatever the FinTech group did to have that kind of commitment to say that we will give them this value. We also want to be seen that, because I think what you talk very nicely. It looks like the plans are there, but I don't really understand why we don't have it in the manifesto. There is no mention of the National Research Fund. And then committing 0.5% of GDP, I think it's way too small for a country that wants to drive with STI. 0.5%, let's go back to the Maputo Declaration, even the 1%. So even if we could say that let's go a little beyond the 1%, I think it would be more enticing than to say that 0.5% of our GDP.
No, I think I need to clarify this.
Yes.
You see, I'm saying that I'm quoting the law, and I'm saying that the National Research Fund has proposed that apart from this 50 million seed money, every year government must commit 0.5% of national revenue to science. That does not mean that the government or any government cannot decide to go beyond that. That does not mean that other sources of funding, I know that the CSIR is even thinking of setting up a $20 million kind of funding in the next 5 years or so. That is equivalent of $4 million, let's say, a year. Okay, assuming that government supports CSIR strongly and CSIR is able to realize that, then that would have also come to add to the kitty, right? And I'm saying that what is important fundamentally is for us to define a national research program that as a country we can hold and say, this is our blueprint for research and technology development in the next 5 years. With that blueprint, if even it is 2% of GDP, once the government commits to funding that will be it. But I'm just saying that at the minimum, we are committed to enforcing the already existing law, which is to say that we are going to pay the seed money, we're going to pay 0.5% of revenue on top of the MST budget, on top of what the president, based on the 30 billion fiscal space that will be created, okay, through by cutting government expenditure by 3%. That fiscal space, the president now has the option to decide where do I want to, as a matter of policy, spend this 30 billion. And I'm saying that my understanding of what Dr. Bawumia's commitment to it, as far as using science technology to achieve the overall goals of job creation, and which is the bigger goal of the manifesto, it will not be out of place that some part of that 30 billion, for example, will be used to, supplement whatever the law has said we should pay. So don't worry about the 1%.
We understand
I'm sure
what the
law.
law.
Go beyond that.
We understand what the law is saying, but we're also saying up your game small. Thank you very much.
When Bawumia is president,
yes, he should up his game small. We can't go the 0.5. The law says that, but I don't think we accept that. So Bawumia should up his game a bit. And now coming back to the CSIF. So the CSIR, because government, you are not funding us. We are trying to have our innovative way of funding ourselves to drive research. Which is good. So now we want to hold a commitment that the MPP government, by you sitting here, we have the Science for Impact Fund just behind you, if you can just turn. Yes, so that is our Science for Impact Fund. That's the endowment fund. That's a $20 million target for the next 5 years. And we want to take your commitment here and now that you would support this fund somehow with the NPP government, or even you, because now you are representing the NPP government. And I remember our public relations director would say that every activity of the CSI is a fundraising activity. So once you are here, we know that, yes, so please, Ashes, when he leaves, don't let him go. We'll have the pledge card to him that you cannot leave here without supporting our CSIF. So we are going to hold you to that. So thank you very much.
Very well.
Yes. Now, something also struck my attention in your manifesto. We are a bit running out of time, but I want to add this. So one of the restructuring of the CSIR that you put is actually to incentivize researchers. Okay. And there was no plan as to how you wish to incentivize researchers. Because honestly, there's a lot of attrition right now in the CSIR, and it's all because of incentives and all motivations and all that. Even if you compare ourselves to our university colleague, we do not understand why there is this huge salary disparities between a senior lecturer, a senior research scientist, associate professor, and a principal research scientist. How does your incentivizing researchers, in which form would they come? And then can we be assured that government is going to take a look at this kind of, UTAG always cries about salary. So if they are crying and we are saying that our salaries are not even up to UTAG, so you can imagine how much we are taking. How are you planning to restructure the salary gaps and then make it more attractive to really retain the best brains that we have in our research? Because honestly, the best brains are leaving, and it's not just because of all these structural programs and then also motivation to work in terms of laboratories and everything. If you can really expand on how you want to incentivize staff of the CSIR, it will be really appreciated.
Yeah, very well. So talking about incentivizing research and then bringing in the issue of personnel incentives and all that into play. I'm very much aware of that. I'm sure as part of the national research program and the reforms that we want to do, all those issues will be taken care of holistically, because you can't resolve a problem by just looking at one side. But let me be frank with you. When I was in CSIL, I never really bothered about salaries that much. Not because I think that the salaries were higher than the university, but it's because, we see, when scientists have the equipment, the needed environment to work, and it is able to generate resources, sometimes that alone is a big incentive. Okay, it is big incentive because then you are able to sort out, apart from sorting out your own personal things, you also have that job satisfaction. That is why we are saying that as part of the incentives, we are not just going to base on promotions on academic publications, but even when you are able to develop a technology that solves a problem in the society, that should be a basis for you to be recognized or even be promoted. Apart from that, we have as one of the pillars or programs of the STI Plus plan of Dr. Bawumia and the MPP is that we're going to have the strategic research facility improvement program. And that is a whole program that is going to look at issues like the working environment, laboratories, and just like I was mentioning, critical investments that will make the research ecosystem become, friendly and attractive for scientists to be able to work in a conducive. The issue of salary disparities, I may not be able to speak to it, as that will be a mandate of probably another committee. But what I can say is that certainly when we have created a very good work ecosystem, we have created the reforms that have the science research program clearly identified more resources being pumped into the CSIR, and that people are doing what they have trained to do, and they are being supported to be innovative. Enterprises are getting out of your work, and so on and so forth. I believe that the effect of that will be that some financial incentives will also come to the scientists who have been involved in that process. And so, yes, I will report back to the principal, I will report back to the vice president that out of this dialogue, what the issue of salary disparity came up, and so that we will see how that could be resolved at another
Shadrach,
level.
I hope you are holding him to it. You are noting that down? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I'll certainly have to report back to the vice president.
Thank you.
On the outcome of the conversation. And
Yeah.
I'm saying that one of the issues that I'm flagging is that there is still this salary disparity. But maybe going forward, you may never know that it may be that, okay, have your conditions. We have our conditions. If our conditions, other things can come on board and make us better off, so to speak, so be it. I don't think we may always have to pledge our conditions of service to the universities per se, or the universities, what we deserve to have based on the work we do.
We have
let
to
us
have it.
negotiate that.
Yes.
and have what we deserve.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. One last thing that I also would want to put up before probably we open up the panel. I want to understand how systemic these strategies for CSIR and for the research body is to the body of the NPP. Because what I realized, I went back to your 2020 manifesto, and to be honest, there was nothing about CSIR. Then you remember that when I came to the car, I asked you, since when were you the STI chair for the committee? And then you said 2021. So then I began to believe that looks like it's the people in there who kind of drive the change. So because it's the same thing with the NDC. So you remember that the National Space and Technology Center, because Prof. Kluche is on that committee, you have that, but there was nothing about CSR in the NDC manifesto. And because you were once with us, so you kind of understand us. Now, we really want to understand, is this systemic or is just because you are leading? Because honestly, then if the moment you leave the scene or the moment the chair goes to somebody else, then if it's not a systemic thing that they really want to see a change, then I'm sorry, it will just be rhetoric in the manifesto. So that is something that we really want to understand moving from this session. Are these structures of transforming the research ecosystem, the CSIR especially, are these systemic or they are individuals within the system that are driving this?
Okay, thank you very much. So just have the understanding that before a manifesto is published, first of all, the political party must own it, and the presidential candidate, he is the last person to sanction it. And so more or less it becomes his working document, that when he's president today, he takes his manifesto and then based on what he has said, begin to roll out a program. So the fact that Dr. Bawumia himself, on countless number of times that he met us as a committee, emphasized that I want to have some reforms. He's talking about a lot of reforms, okay, in the economy, in the tax system, here and there. So he himself has said that I want to have that kind of a science ecosystem that will have a focus on a national priority program, that science funding should be based on that program, so that we know that when we are investing this money, this is what we are expecting to get. I'm not saying that fundamental research is not important or whatever, but as a country that has limited resources, you need a president who is mindful of every investment that we are making. What are we going to get out of it? So it is not something that was just pushed in there because maybe I was the chairman of the committee or so. But it also tells you that Dr. Bawumia is able to make competent decisions. So the fact that, he's able to bring people who understand the sector on board, and at the end of the day, we are able to hijack, if you like, 2 pages of manifesto on one sector. It tells you that that kind of, thinking has also gone into the manifesto. And be assured that when he is president, through your vote and through my vote, and through the vote of everyone here, when he is president, whatever has been said in the manifesto, he has a clear idea, he has a clear vision of what he wants to do with science and technology. And I think we should give him the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together. So I believe that in as much as individuals, he has the right people within to push the agenda. We also want to see a more holistic, because my friends from GAEC, they don't have a picture within because they are, yes, you understand what I'm trying to say. So, so please, yes, CSR is good, but then we want to have that holistic picture of the entire research innovation system.
May I
to have in? That as well.
So yes. When we talk about the fact that we're going to have a council for scientific and industrial research, maybe we have used that terminology, but the spirit behind it is to have that national council, just like that's why I went back to Kwame Nkrumah's vision of having that kind of science council, that every other public research, and it is clear in the manifesto, so GAEC, Cocoa Research, any research institution that is funded by the taxpayer will have to come under some kind of central control of political direction, so that everything you are doing in your individual institutions will be informed by the National Research Program. So when I talk about the National Research Program, I'm not talking about research program for CSIR. We are talking about national. And so whether you are GAEC, you are CSIR, as we call it today, or you are Cocoa Research or whatever, once you are funded by the public, we need to define a national program that we all work together to achieve.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mahamudu. Let's put our hands together for him once again. So open up the floor, and then Shadrach will lead us to take questions from the audience. Thank you.
Let's give it up again for Dr. Mahamudu and then Justina for such an in-depth discussion we've had on STI. In the account, they say that so I hope that all we are trying to say in conclusion, Dr. Mahamudu, is that make us your friend. Yes. When you are there, remember us. Don't forget us. We know when you come to power, when the opportunity comes, you will not forget us. And that's why we are talking plenty. And I know GAEC is also here. They are watching keenly. They are very interested in the discussion. Now, let me take this opportunity to introduce and acknowledge the presence of my own very mother, our DDG, Deputy Director General of CSR, in the person of Professor Marianne Quay. As she's here, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for coming. We also have in our midst our Director for Soil Research Institute, based in Kwadaso, Ashanti region, in the person of Dr. Colin Stay. Shall we give up a warm reception to him? Thank you so much for coming, all the way from Kumasi. We appreciate your presence. At this juncture, we want to open the floor. I know that some people's mouths are itching to speak, and we will start from maybe 3 questions at a time, and then we go over again if there are any more to ask. So if you have a question to ask, just lift your hand up and I'll call you, and then you come and ask your question, please. Any question for MPP? Yes, number 1. Number 2. Any more? Any more? Okay, so let's start with these 2, and then if they are, okay, so we have number 3, Dr. Collins Day. All right, please. Very much, Dr. Kashi, for that input. I must say that CSR management has been very supportive to RSA, and that's why we are having this in the first place. But like you said, we are all disappointed. In fact, almost last week, we almost canceled the whole show because we were totally disappointed at how they received us. You know, we have sent invitations ahead of time and all, but it turned on deaf ears. But then we are okay, since we still have been able to have some discourse, and we hope that it will reach the final receiver of the news. Okay, so let me just take the next. Yes, please, Doc. You have the floor as we move on.
Thank you. My name is Gordon Akoyamga. work at Science and Technology Policy Research Institute, or the CSIR. Let me ride on the existing protocol. Let me seek refuge there. I sort of understood and not so clear the restructuring of the CSIR bit. So, Honorable, if you could elaborate that a little bit. And allied to that is to find out whether there is a systemic, a structured way of, for example, the presidents or the vice president have weekly briefings or briefings. Do you have a kind of a conception where you have a systemic way in which you have the scientists, in fact, the DGs, or the one who is in charge of the restructured CSR, should it be the National Science Advisor to the President, who has the ear of the President, who is communicating to the President directly in terms of what the scientists are doing, or what he is doing as a national scientist, so to speak. So that is my first question. But then also I wanted to contribute to the conversation to say that we do indeed have national research agendas in some spaces. For example, with support from UNESCO, we worked on the national science, what we call the STI for SDGs. How do we harness science, technology, and innovation to help in achieving the SDGs? This is a national agenda that has been set up. So I just wanted to contribute to the conversation. Thank you.
So after this one, then we'll take another set.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Shadrach. And I also do stand on the existing protocols. My name is Colin Stay from Soil Research Institute. Let me also add my voice to the fact that we are not happy that when it comes to science, technology, and innovation, and the scientists invite the presidential candidates, they will easily, send their reps instead of they themselves coming to meet us. For some of us, it looks to us as if when it comes to science, technology, and innovation, our leaders do not really, take this serious. And for me, this is not to say that the reps they are sending to us are not really up to the task, but we want to meet with our presidential candidates and have a chat with them, just like they will do to GUTA and all the rest of other bodies. So I would want to plead with you to take this information to your candidates. And the NDC as well, if any of them are here, please hear me very well. It's not to say that the reps they are sending to us are not really up to the task. Now, my worry here, Doc, is that GUTA and all the rest of other bodies. So I would want to plead with you to take this information to your candidates. And the NDC as well, if any of them are here, please hear me very well. It's not to say that the reps they are sending to us are not really up to the task. Now, my worry here, Doc, is that all the rest of other bodies. So I would want to plead with you to take this information to your candidates.
Maybe the system is repeating for emphasis. It means that it's so important to the system. So, Dr. Mafo, please send the message. Thank you.
Thank you for playing that back to me. Now, Doc, one very important and significant thing that we, the researchers in this country, are very worried about is the fact that the research work that we do in the country are primarily funded by donors. And because of that, the donors set the agenda, or they come into the country with their, the projects and their, objectives and all that. Now, they give you the monies and ask you to prosecute that, what they have brought to you. And so you end up doing research to fit what the donors are asking for. And by the time they finish, they take all the data away. Let me just give you an example. Currently, the Soil Research Institute is into a partnership or collaboration with CABI and ISRIC, and we are trying to actually map out all the soils of the country. Now, after we do this, the data that we will gather for our country, the soils of Ghana, we are going to hand over this data to ISRIC and Kabi. And they will be the ones who carry the data wherever they are and be talking about the different types of soils in Ghana. Now, when that is done, you know that very important, data has been taken out of, away from you and is being handled by somebody somewhere else. Why in our own imagination are we doing this to our country? When a government must really fund this and ask the researchers to gather the data and host it at a platform, an online platform. And so that when these people need any information on the data, they come to us and then we give it to them. Instead of we sitting down and they bring in the monies to, ask us to go do this work and hand over the data to them. This has been happening for a very long time, and I would want government to do something about it. And I want you to tell me how differently the MPP is going to approach this one, so that we can keep very vital information here with us and not part with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Collins Day. So I think that we will ask Dr. Mahamudu to respond to the questions.
Thank you very much. When I was a national secretary of RSA some years back, and we also tried to organize the same forum, we had this kind of same feeling. Of course, everyone wants to see the main man, the president, or the president-to-be. And so I can appreciate very much your concerns about, or your disappointments, if you like, about the inability of Dr. Bawumia and maybe President Mahama not able to come in person. But I will urge you not to be disappointed, because whatever he had come here to say, when he's president and he's implementing, he will implement with people. Amen. And therefore, if a presidential candidate has confidence to send someone to a meeting to represent him, of course, a meeting of no less importance than meeting the caliber of people who are here. Give him credit that some considerations might have gone into his decision in telling there are many people in MPP. So for the fact that he decides to ask us to come and represent him means that probably what you would have told him if he's president, or when he's president, he has in mind that these are people that may help me to implement. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's any jurisdiction in the world that it's easy to, this is politics. You are talking about timing of an event. I think next time I will advise that we give notice, maybe 6 months, 3 months, or maybe 6 months before time, because this election year, the presidential candidates might have planned their activities way back, okay? So that is one thing. The other thing is that we should not be bothered. We are talking about sector-specific policies. That is what is important. It is about what the president will do sector-wise. And so your sector of science and technology, your interest is how the government is going to address the issues that we are discussing. To the extent that we have captured that in our manifesto, to the extent that that feedback from this interaction will reach him, and to the extent that he will use people as policy advisors when he's president, I would rather not be disappointed, except for the symbolics of the fact that the president walked into your compound and then maybe had pictures. Of course, it has its own importance, but I'm saying that I will urge you not to be disappointed Maybe you are talking about other groups that if they had called him, probably their numbers, maybe the timing of their invitation, etc. So I know many invitations that the president or candidate is not able to attend, right? But if it's about policy, then he knows the people to send to those meetings, because if he's president, he is not going to be the one in charge of science and technology anyway. Definitely he will appoint people to take care of that sector for him. And so, my friend from GAIC, don't be disappointed. I urge you to have hope, so that pray that when he becomes president, he will be properly advised and remembered to do the things that we are sitting here talking about. That's the important thing that I think we should care about. The other thing is about the restructuring of CSR as stated in the manifesto. So, you see, the problem that we are mentioning, it comes back to the same system that we're talking about. There's no country in the world that that can implement a solid science technology program when there's no the highest political oversight, or as it were, will to push it. As for good ideas on paper, you can have them. You need a president who believes in that, and you need a president who is competent to make appointments of people who can, do the things that he believes he wants to do. And you need a president who can have an oversight over what is going on. That is why our solution is that we need to have a national research program, negotiated, discussed with the stakeholders, industry, and then having a blueprint. Now, so the CSIR, as a council, will need to have that direct political linkage with the office of the president. I don't know the formula that he will use. In some countries, the president decides to appoint a chief scientific advisor, which is a cabinet status position. In some countries, the head of the council is invited to cabinet. Whatever formula that he will use, there are many models that can be employed. But the understanding that you need to carry is that we want to make material the spirit of the CSIR Act. Section 2 of the CSIR Act talks about the fact that we need to have a council that will coordinate all scientific research in Ghana. The question is the current CSIR coordinating all scientific research in Ghana? My answer is no, because we have a structure where other science-related activities are outside the purview, if like, of the CSIR. And so the reform is not to, the reform basically is to go back to the same act and say that we need to have that council. It may happen that the composition of the council may change. It may happen that all kinds of things can happen as far as that council is concerned. But the important is that we need to have that national council that will take custody of the national research program and make sure that that national research program that has been negotiated for the country in the next 5 years is being implemented well. I think that is the most important thing. As for the specific formulations of how it's going to be done, that there are many models to learn from. But that is the spirit of that provision in the manifesto. And indeed, that is what the CSR Act actually says we should do. And so we're just going to implement, if like the CSR Act, bring a material meaning to the implementation of that act. And then the last one was about the issue about data and funding and research. It comes back to the same thing. It comes back to the point that if, as a country, we don't define the direction for our research in a certain period, based on the needs of our people, based on the needs of industry, and based on the needs that the things that need to be, we need intervention as a country that technology can help us to do, then we will have these sort of things. And that is why our manifesto is saying that when Dr. Bawumia is president, he will make sure that we develop a national research program, which will be a blueprint, and the financing of that program will become government's priority. And so when you have defined A, B, C, D, Z as the priorities that Ghana as a country we must focus on and get science solutions to that, then our budget will reflect that. When that is done, you will not have the situation where if, for example, understanding the soil dynamics or soil site to soil or crop to soil mapping or whatever is a priority and something that will feed into what we want to achieve, then that will have a reflection in the national budget, and so that program will be funded. So that is why the MPP and Dr. Bawumia uses the word invest. There is going to be a new narrative of investment, government pumping in resources. But that resources is not just going to be like your budget for 2024 was 1.2 billion. We are jumping it to 2 billion. No, it will be based on the program that is developed through a consultation process, defining the national priorities that must be addressed so that the Ghanaian people will see the relevance of CSIR. In any case, I have been a very strong advocate for the visibility of the CSIR from day one. Anytime I meet the CSIR as committee chair, I've always told the Director General that the last time I said, be visible or vanish. Visibility is important. And some of these things, I believe, are part of the visibility issues that we need to do. We need to do more. In fact, I've even advocated that we need to quantify the contribution of CSR to the economy of Ghana, because politicians only understand languages that if it is in figures. Finance ministers understand figures. They don't understand narratives. So what has been our contribution to the development of this country? I know there's enormous contribution, but we need to put it in a language that is tangible to the political class and political leaders so that that attachment of importance to the sector will be something that we can realize. I wish that Dr. Bawumia becomes president, and I wish that when he's president, the things that the manifesto is saying, we will all be part of the process to make sure that we implement them, so that for once we will not be paying lip service to science technology, but then we will be doing substantive things on the ground that will transform the narrative and make us all realize the dream of science playing its role in our national development. I think there's hope, and we should be hopeful. Thank you.
All right. Well spoken, Dr. Mafo. We also wish that STI will be featured in all national developmental projects, because then we need to make a mark. And it's a challenge you've also thrown to us. We should up our game and become visible, or we vanish. We will really take charge of that. And from hence, I'm sure you hear more of RSA, Old GAEC, and CSR. A lot is already happening on the issue of Galamsey, and we hope that we'll be able to get ahead somewhere. I mean, and some implementation will come after all the noise in quotes that we are making. We hope so, when Bawumia becomes president. Thank you. All right, I think there are more questions. It's incited a lot of questions. Our time is up, actually, but we'll still give room for 4 more questions. I'll take directors on, and then, 2 directors, and then Hajia Safia. Today, let me take 5. Let me take all that is, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's 1 here. 6. All right, so once we are done, then we will bring it to a close. Director, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Shadrach. My name is Isaac Danso, Director, OPRE. Honorable, during your preambles, you rightly stated that most of the countries that have developed this so through STI. And remember that they did so through long-term development plan with STI as an input. Going to drop my small girl in school, she asked me a simple question: Daddy, when are we going to have a long-term development plan as a country? And I thought it's proper for me to ask you, as a member of parliament, when are we going to have that? Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Safia Tukwe, CSI Head Office. In 2021, CSIR was fortunate enough to host the select committee at STEPRI. And through your leadership as a chair, you took a whole day to visit all the Kumasi-based institutes. And at first hand, you saw what we could do. You saw all the flagship products and services. You also saw for yourself the challenges of the institutes. When you went back to Parliament as a committee, what intentionally did you do to kind of address some of the challenges of these institutes? And please be specific with your answers, because whatever you say is going to influence how I vote come December. Thank you very much.
My name is Osea Kinibwana. I'm the director of CSI Water Research Institute. I think as the director of Water Research Institute, you need to go back with a question on water. When I talk water, I know you know what I'm talking about. The Galamsey challenge that we've been having, I think it's an issue of a challenge of STI, and that we need application of STI. That's what I'm asking you about this. I want to find out, currently I think it's all over the place about the challenges that we face with Galamsey. As somebody who says it's a national emergency, it's got to do with the very critical issue on the life of the people, because you always hear that water is life. And you can look at a stretch almost about 100 kilometers of a river course where all the people over there have no use of that river, so to speak, in terms of agriculture, in terms of potable water, and whatever you have. I want to find out from you and your presidential candidate. For now, it's just few days that we have that I don't think much can be done, except if your presidential candidate wants to indicate that there must be a stop to Galamsey. That is not too important to me now. But what is very important to me is that what is your plan as a government, that when you come to power in 2025, what is your plan in trying to get back our waters? Are you still going to pursue the same course, or you have a strategic plan in order to change the scenario where people will have our waters back, seeing them as colorless water instead of water which is full of color? Because water is supposed to be colorless. But we have so much. What's going to be your plan? And how do we use it in order to also help us as a people? There are a lot of diseases that are coming out, kidney and other stuff. What can you do to save the country of our water, so that in the future our children will not come and say that our ancestors did us great harm?
All right, let me allow Doc to answer the 3, and then we continue. So that if you have a question, once it comes, just follow, so that it goes in fast for all of us. Okay, sure, Honorable.
Thank you very much for those brilliant questions. Yes, long-term development plan is something that is desirable, is something that we must have. And we have talked about it in our manifesto, that one of the constitutional amendments that we will be seeking to do is to make sure that the National Development Planning Commission, if like, is depoliticized. Now, as we speak today, because a sitting president will normally appoint the head of that institution, and that person does not have a cabinet status kind of position, you see that party manifestos may even be more powerful than the national development plans, which in actual fact, we should have drawn our manifestos from long-term national development plans. So the only way we can make that is to make sure that the NDPC stand as an autonomous, properly speaking, body that will also, the chairman of that commission will also be made to be a cabinet status position. So that when you are talking about development, he will be there to draw the government's attention to what the national, medium-term, long-term development goals and strategies of the countries are. What it will also then mean is that you need to negotiate that document so that it becomes a national document. As we speak now, some of these documents, even though they have the title of national, they have become more of, depending on which regime is doing it, they have become more of a by extenso political document. So yes, we need a certain constitutional amendment to give greater autonomy to the National Development Commission, and also have a specific constitutional provision that says that we must have a national development, plan in every 10 years, in every 20 years or whatever, and that should inform the manifestos, so that manifestos just become more or less policy and programs. Okay, so the plan is there, the bigger goals are there, and then you tell us how would your party achieve this, instead of the other way where now national documents will have to adjust to accommodate party manifestos. So that would be my view, and I think that it is clear in our manifesto that we're going to amend the Constitution. It's one of the things that any constitutional amendment will need to address. Of course, that is also what has been recommended by the Constitutional Review Commission. Now, the other issue from Honorable Safiatu was about the outcome of our interaction. By and large, I would say that the input of the committee into the MPP manifesto was also influenced largely by the experiential knowledge that members of the committee, especially those from our side, also gained from the field, looking at things. And why we thought that we needed to open the funding opportunities to take up research output. So, for example, you need just $4 million to do a pozzolana facility in the central region. So if we come to power and that remains an important, we are able to establish that as an important intervention that must happen, then you have to commit it should be part of your national enterprise, science enterprise uptake program, and you should commit some resources to that. But apart from that, we in Parliament are not policy makers. We are oversight. We provide oversight. So in terms of policy actions, the executive who are the ones that are supposed to do. But through the intervention of the committee, for the first time, MEST budget crossed a 1 billion bench. And that is why in 2024, the MEST budget was almost 1.2 billion. The first time that MEST sector budget has crossed a 1 billion Ghana cedi bench. That is not to say that it is enough, but I'm just saying that the more you hammer home the issues, the more you make the politicians, especially the president, understand the importance of the sector, and maybe finance ministers understand the importance of the sector, the more these things will flow in. But I can say that the manifesto takes care of the observations that we made from the field, and that is why maybe we have been able to formulate what we think is a good program that will take science technology forward in this country. So the third question on Galamsey is, yes, that's an apt one, even though it's not directly related, but I think that as far as we are concerned as a country, it's an important matter that any forum should be able to talk about it. I believe that over the years, our approach to the Galamsey fight has been trying to deal with the effects. But you need a solution that will deal with the cause. And what is the cause? The cause is that people know that there's gold in this country. There is no geological assessment that tells you where is the gold, but we know there's gold. And therefore, it calls for exploration, it calls for try and error, and that is why people pick their stuff, go to anywhere and start digging. It's not that they know that definitely there's gold. And even the method they are using is just getting probably 40% of what they're supposed to get. So Dr. Bawumia's agenda on Galamsey or mining is that, yes, by policy, we saying that mining is something that should happen in this country. We must make use of our natural resources. But what we have to do is to make sure that first and foremost, we have a clear idea of where the resources are located. And that is why in our manifesto, we are going to invest a lot of money, probably in the history of the life of Ghana Geological Survey Department. They may not have seen that level of funding to make sure that we conduct a national geological assessment and map out the locations, specific locations where we have the deposit of the mineral. And then you plan to allocate the resources based on exact location. By so doing, you are avoiding this try and error that is making people go destroy everywhere because they want gold. The second thing is that you want to shorten the processing, the licensing arrangements that exist. As we speak today, if somebody wants a mining license, he needs to go all the way to the ministerial level. The minister will have to grant that. Who has time to wait when at my backyard I know people are digging, there's gold there, and then my papers are running through regional office to national office to Ghana Minerals Commission, then to ministry. That process is too long. Once we know that there's gold here, we should let the process end at the district level so that everybody, the chief, the landowners, the local government, and Minerals Commission, everyone will be part of the assessment at the local level, at the district level, and that will shorten the licensing regime profoundly. By so doing, people can then apply and in a very short time get their license and then they can go. And when you do that, then the responsibility is also on the local actors, the chiefs and the assemblymen and the district chief executives, because they would have granted that license to the person. So they would make sure that those who have been given licenses are the ones operating. Then the president can have the boldness to sanction if anyone is mining in your community when that person does not have a mining license. And then, of course, we need to use the power of technology using the gold catcher equipment, which has been piloted in Takwa, in Prestia areas. And apart from the fact that they give a better yield to the gold, it's less damaging to the environment. So we need to invest and make sure that people who have been given those licenses would then have, through the Minerals Development Fund or bank, would then have access to resources to be able to purchase that equipment. And of course, understand this in the context that we would have then introduced the credit system so that people do not necessarily need to have all the big monies to buy the gold catcher machine. And that because a credit system would have been running, people can then have these machines and use them and then pay them in bits. So the solutions are holistic. I believe that the manifesto speaks to it. And if we are able to implement these measures, then we will be dealing with the root causes of the problem and not just solving the problem by dealing with the effects. I think that's what I can say for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable, for the responses. I don't know if we are okay with the responses, but we have also online participants who have some questions. Let's take these ones quickly, and I know Dr. Mafo will do us well to be snappy with the answers so that we can close in time. We have just about 10 minutes to end everything. So just be snappy with your questions, and then we will take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Daniel Amankwa from Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. My comment is that when Honorable was speaking, he said that when it comes to salary issues, talk about it. But I think that in this country, we are actually not paying much attention to science. Because if a student actually gets the opportunity to travel outside to study, the stipend which is given to that particular student even crosses about $2,000. How many of the scientists gathered here even take home $1,000 as salary? We don't. Besides that, when it comes to research, the director talks about when you get a research which is being sponsored by an international body, then that's why it means that you are even sponsored. In most of the schools that we have in this country, you actually do the research by paying everything yourself. You, the student who is doing the research, you pay everything yourself. So I think that what the country should do is to establish these STI plus that you are talking about. You have a component where research will actually be funded. Because I don't think that any research which is carried out in this country is useless research. Besides that one also, what I would like to say is that if we talk about the effect of galamsey on actually water bodies, most of the comment I have heard is about heavy metal content in the water, heavy metal content in the water which we do not have or use our eyes to see. Some research that I have done in the Western region have actually shown that apart from the heavy metal content, which actually is high, radionuclide activities are also very high in water bodies where these galamsey operations have actually taken place. So maybe you'll be talking about heavy metals and all these things, but radionuclides are also dangerous and very, very serious pollutant in some of these water bodies that we are talking about. So we should actually pay attention to that. Thank you.
Please, I am George Mbro Prepe by name from the NRA. Please, I have 3 questions to ask. The first one is, I want to ask, what plans does the NRA, the NPP have about the nuclear power program, which is away? And then my next question is, what percentage of the research fund will be dedicated to the research for the regulatory bodies in Ghana? And the final one is with the development, rebuilding and restructuring the National Research Program in Science and Technology. What is the dream, the plan, and the vision for the rural areas? Because I've come to realize that even with the rural people, there are a lot of talents and then abilities, capabilities that people have, but they are not getting any chance or the ability to come out to even use their talents out. So I want to ask, what are the plans, the visions that the NPP government have on the development of this science and technology and then the research?
So we take the last one from here.
Thank you very much. I'm
Snappy,
Etonyo Agbeko.
very snappy.
Very snappy. The first one is on the 0.5% you mentioned. I want to know, since MPP is in government, I want to know how much had been contributed so far as the 0.5% is concerned. Now, the second one is a commitment I want from the MPP government to influence our vote. The NDC came here a week ago to promise more or less vowed for a 5% research fund. However, this morning I'm hearing 0.5. You have the opportunity to increase it if you want. So we want to ask you, MDC promised us 5% research fund, and now we are hearing 0.5 from this committee. Please, you have the opportunity to increase it if you want. The second one is on our lands, the CSR lands. I want to have a commitment from the government. Not only CSRI, any land that is meant for research and development that had been seeded down by our founder, Kwame Nkrumah. What are you going to do about it? We are not asking you to reclaim the other ones, but at least the ones that are left, what is the level of commitment? Can you give us your word that you will not come back to the council and other state institutions to make proposals or make juicy proposals to use them for affordable housing and other things that sounds socially good, but will not help us in terms of posterity? That is the second one.
I think we should end here.
Yes, the third one, the third one is just the last one. We want to have some level of commitment, like was done years back during President Kufuor's time, where some professional bodies were given tax waivers as far as research and their staff were concerned. So we want to have your word on some level of tax waivers that you can give for research equipment coming into the country, and also tax waivers on cars or other incentives for researchers in the country. As far as you're a researcher, you can have these tax waivers as far as you want to import a car or you want to have some of these things. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to associate myself with the last question. It's important. It's very important. In fact, the last one, in fact, all of them, but the last one, categorically, I want to mention that please let Ingo inside as you are writing it. All right. I think the issue of 5%, the NDC, I think it was corrected at the point that it's actually not written it was a proposal they discussed at a meeting, but let's get it right. It was not part of their manifesto, so we don't send it out there. And then, so news media, please don't take them on. It was not put on paper. It was just a meeting they had, and he was just sharing their thoughts with us. So I don't know if you go maybe 6%. Very snappy. Just give us some response to this. Thank you.
Well, so the issue of salary and tax waiver for scientists are issues I would pen down and take up. What I can make a firm commitment to probably will be the issue of waivers for scientific equipment, because that should be part of the national, of the whole program of the STI Plus plan. And so the STI Plus plan will come with also the financial aspects. And one of the issues will be addressing the issue of importation of scientific equipment. I don't think it is acceptable for us to have a situation where equipment that are going to be used for research should be held at the port because of payment of taxes. I'm sure Dr. Bawumia himself will be very favorable to this proposal. And please don't quote me that we said we will pay 0.5%. I quoted the law. The law says, I said that maybe for purpose of emphasis, I said that at minimum we commit to enforce the National Research Fund Act. In that act, we are supposed to pay a seed money of 50 million. We are supposed to dedicate 0.5% of national revenue for science. And I'm saying that if we are going to enforce that law, it means that at minimum, these monies will reflect in the next budget. That is outside the national research program and the priorities that will be developed for Ghana, that the president would think that as a matter of policy, I want A, B, C, D to go on, and therefore we are committing money to fund it. That much, of course, you cannot decide now because you don't have the national research program yet. So let us be clear. I want to stay focused on our manifesto. You know, the issue of 5% and whatever, whether it came up or not. You see, the situation where people deal with post-manifesto jabbings, I call it. Your original intention must be contained in your manifesto. The moment after people have published manifestos or you have a forum like this and you begin to talk big, for me, it raises credibility issues. It tells me that you did not originally think through your solutions well, and maybe for the benefit of having votes, you want to say, I'll give you 80%. And that is why when you talk about the car waiver for scientists, I said, no, it is not in the manifesto, but I will take it up to the presidential candidate. If you talk about salary issues, we have not talked about that specifically in the manifesto, but it's a point worth taking to the presidential candidate. So when he's president, he can pay attention to those issues. So we will be committed. In any case, if you go and look at the data, the data will suggest to you that under an MPP administration, we have provided more money for the sector than the NDC. And that one, go and look at the MST budgets from 2009 up to 2024. The data will speak to itself. So it's not a matter of coming here to say, we'll give you 10%, we'll give you 5%. What have you given before is what is important. Now, on the issue of nuclear program, yes, nuclear is very important and the manifesto speaks to that. I can't recall the exact place, but the manifesto speaks to the fact that we are going to promote the nuclear energy program. And recently, Ghana signed an agreement with a French company going to test all our grades in the country to see its suitability for taking up nuclear power in the just ended International Atomic Energy Agency meeting in Vienna. In fact, I was present when that deal was signed. So it tells you that there is already a move towards. In fact, I know that GAEC has already put up a proposal calling for vendors to build a nuclear plant. And so we are on course, and that program will continue when Dr. Bawumia is the president. Now, on the issue of village, rural people becoming part of this, yes, that is why this government has introduced the STEM program, emphasizing that we must have at least 60% of our school people focusing on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And when we are able to intensify the STEM program and the TVET program, which this government has funded more than any other government, we will then begin to see school children and for that matter, people in rural areas now taking keen interest in skill level training. I think that grammar education is too much. The time has come for us to pay more attention to skill training in this country. Otherwise, we will be producing grammar graduates without having the skills to meet the demands of the industry. So I think that is what I would say for now. Thank you.
Better. All too soon, we have come to the end of our presidential dialogue. And this one, a plea. Let's give it up for them again. In fact, it's been a marathon. I can understand that the job is not easy. But he has spoken as both a scientist and a politician. And we are grateful to you, Dr. Iman Omafo, for your time and the insight that you've given us on STI. I hope that it will not end here, but it will continue from here. Now that we have you in government, when Bawumia comes, we are praying. We know that we will be calling on you from time to time to see how these issues will go for CSR and GAEC and STI in general for national development. So on that note, we want to say thank you for coming. I will give it to Justina to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for him once again. I think he's one of the few scientists who don't lose their science when they move into politics. So today we've actually engaged like a scientist in politics, which is actually very good. But I think living here, there's something that I don't want us to downplay. And it has to do with seeing the physical presence of our leaders. Because you actually made a statement that it is not for the symbolism of it, and it's not for the show. But then we believe that once we see them, it's a show of commitment. It's a show of commitment in the sense that when you were talking at a point, you begin to use the word may, I will consult. But if Bawumia is here, we will be hearing the word will, we will do. So there are two different things that I think we don't need to downplay. We want to see that we feel special to them. Because during COVID era, we actually felt that. When the president will come and do fellow Ghanaians, the data says this, the data says that. It means that government know when to use data, and they know. So we want to feel that governments know how to use us. So it is not for the fact that we call on them and they will send representative and it is enough. We want to see them. And as someone said, if other groups had called them, I'm sure they would have prioritized. So you also made a statement that we should churn out our qualitative contribution to more quantitative. And I'll throw that same word back to the MPP, that there's a lot of alphabetical promises within the manifesto, but we are not seeing the numerical representation in numbers. So I'm throwing the same word to you that we want to see that kind of commitment and we want to see it happen. So we wish the NPP team the best, and may Science for Development win. Thank you.
Thank you. On that note, you want to say something? Okay. So please.
Yes, of course. I need to thank you first and foremost for the opportunity, and also reiterate the fact that Dr. Bawumia, as a man who loves debate and loves data, I'm sure would have loved to be here genuinely. But having said that, I'd like to say that you would be seeing him when he is president, because he would make sure that his STI Plus program is implemented in full. And so I want to urge all of you that you can bank on his credibility. I believe that when he's president, CSIR, GAEC, and all the science community in Ghana will be better off than any other person. And so I plead with you that as you go home, go and convince or speak to your children and your family and your friends and vote for number 1, for Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia as president of Ghana. Thank you very much.
So he's a politician. You can't take that away from him. We understand. As you give them a clap as they mount the stage, we want to invite the chairman of this event, Prof. Bosu, to give us a closing remarks. Please give it up to him.
Thank you very much. Can we put our hands together once again? You will agree with me that it has been a really worthy time to be here. When I heard that it was Dr. Mafo coming, I didn't expect anything less. You know, he will never disappoint. He will really tell you the facts. I don't want to say so many things because there are other meetings and others, but please allow me to say this in closing, that years ago when I met the lady who was eventually to become my wife, and as we guys do, and I was saying so many things to her, at a point she told me that, Paul,